Hi everyone. So this week we're going to be looking at 3-point lighting. So 3-point lighting is basically key light, floodlight, backlight. The key light is your most important light, arguably even the only light you will need for making a high quality, good lighting video. And that's going to be your key light. So that's your direct light. So that has to be directly at your subject. And what you need to do is have it on your side and have it above eye level, pointing down at you at a 45-degree angle. This is in order to mimic sunlight and how sunlight comes above your head and points down at you. Why it's a 45-degree angle? It's because it's a really attractive angle where you're getting enough shadows and also enough brightness coming in. Now, I wanted to mention that shadows in the face is actually really good, as long as it's not too much shadows. So it might be, and you might have an inclination to go for like a really bright image where everything is really bright, but it actually makes it look more flat. And you want to have the key light directly at your subject, so then your subject ends up being the focal point of your video, and that's what the audience will primarily pay attention to. Next is going to be the floodlight. So the floodlight is basically coming in on the opposite side of your key light. And if you're using a key light, you might have more dramatic shadows on one side of your face. And you want to have the floodlight come in to basically brighten up some of those shadows. Now, this is not necessary all the time, but it's good to just keep in mind. And I wanted to just mention, my key light is a clamp light up on a light stand, pointed down, 45-degree angle. And my floodlight is actually just a window with a curtain over it. Now, the backlight is basically the light that goes behind you. It could be on the side. It can be a little bit on the side. It can be up, pointed down. Either way, it's going to always be behind you in a certain capacity. And that's basically supposed to have like a little bit of a halo effect. And that's basically to separate you from your background. You saw my light kind of popping up a little bit. So that's important in order to separate yourself from the background, because it can actually basically have you pay more close attention to your subject and yourself, really. Those are kind of like the main things. I also wanted to mention diffusing. So diffusion is really important to understand. It's basically you're making a harsh lighting look softer, so then it looks a little more natural, like what you would see in real life, or what would be the most flattering in photography, videography, is to diffuse that lighting. There's different ways of making that soft lighting. You can have the more expensive way of getting a soft box, but you don't really need to do that, because what you can do is actually use plastic bags. So plastic bags are a really cheap and great way of just diffusing your light. I actually put on my clamp light up here on my key light, I put 4 or 5 plastic bags on them in order to diffuse that light and make it softer, because it was too harsh on me. And if it's harsh, what that means is you might look really shiny, the contrast, there's more harshness and less contrast on your face and stuff like that, or not less contrast, but it just doesn't look as soft as what you would like it to look, especially in a talking head video like this. And that's kind of one of the most important things. Another thing is I have a curtain over my window, and that's another way to diffuse the light, because the sun can also be very bright and cause harsh shadows. And so I actually don't have diffusion on my backlight to get more light to come in, and I wanted to say that because with diffusion, you want it to be where you're basically not just getting a softer image, but you're also getting a little bit of a darker image, because the more plastic bags you put on it, the darker the image can get. And so just keep that in mind if you're using diffusions, that you can actually darken the image a bit by just putting on diffusing your light a little more. Now, placement. Light placement is really important. And I wanted to mention that light placement, basically, you have to either, if you want it to be brighter, you bring the direct light, that's the key light, closer to you. And if you want it darker, you move it away from you. And that's a really important thing. So you can diffuse the light to darken it a bit, but it's good to keep in mind that it's actually, if it's too much color, too dark on your image, you can actually bring it closer. And if it's too bright on your image, you just bring it back. And it's basically a good balance between like a little bit of shadows on your face and also enough brightness so you're properly exposed and looking at yourself in the video. So yeah, that's basically the most important things of 3-point lighting, and everything I'm using here is all that you already have. I'm only using key lights. I'm only using my phone as opposed to my Sony camera. And I even have like the things that are propping up my backlight, for instance, are just books, just books, because I wanted it to be as authentic as possible. The only thing I am using is my light right here, my light stand that you may or may not have, but you can always prop it up and clamp it on anything you have access to. So yeah, that's those are my tips on and explaining 3-point lighting. Sorry if you're hearing some stuff happening on the outside. There seems to be some motorcycles coming by. But yeah, these are just a little bit of information. So I hope that helps everybody. And if you have any questions, please let me know.